All right, folks, welcome to another episode of Coffee Roaster warm-up sessions. I never say it well. You always do it better than me, but, you got to switch it up sometimes. So,
That's true.
Well, let's start off with our classic tradition, pouring some brews. I don't know what you brewed here, but I'm going to attempt with a guess. You haven't given me any notification or any idea of what
I should have waited for your mystery coffee, but I just pulled the trigger. I had a hunch the whole time as I was making the coffee. I'm like, dude, he's going to bring a coffee that we should be tasting. And then...
No, it's my fault for showing up late. I mean, maybe oh yeah, that's the coffee.
Dude,
So it's actually a very good brew. Oh, it's like something very, very sweet, almost like honey, but it's more floral. Yeah. It's a floral sweetness. Mm-hmm. It's not simple syrup sweetness. Honey, I feel like that simple syrup sweetness I can like smell from a mile away, but it's floral.
Honey, I like that. I actually like that descriptor, honey, on the aromas, that is.
Maybe vanilla.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. As soon as you said that, I was like, wait, yeah. Ooh. Pretty complex, actually. Like,
it's got to be our Ethiopia Guji.
Yeah.
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 Candy ginger.
Yeah.
In the middle.
Yeah. I mean, it feels like it's weird because I usually get that candy ginger or the blackberry that we have on the bag on the front end. For some reason, in this cup, I was getting like a bouquet of like florals.
Yes.
And then the ginger, like the candied sweetness, the blackberry came in on the back end.
Yeah, I had someone have it at Makeworth today, which we're still serving, like, not this roast for sure, like an older roast. And they came in, had it on pour over, and DM'd me and said, dude, like, I don't know what coffee I had on pour over, but were there any like berry notes or blueberry?
Really?
Yeah. And I was like,
nice.
Close.
That's
good. It's actually blackberry, but they were pretty pumped on it.
Yeah. No, this is actually an older roast. So.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh,
not an older, but not this week's roast that we just roasted. Yeah.
Now the blackberry.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
It's weird that I've never had that the blackberry and the candy ginger are kind of interchangeable almost. Kind of how, depending on how you think about it, I feel like your mind can tell you, your brain can send those same, I don't know, neurons firing of the same. It's pretty tasty. Like I'm getting down with this.
I'm shocked with what the bed looked like. Dude, I am blown away.
Yeah. The bed sometimes looks scary.
Brew.
Yeah, it's pretty good. Dang.
Dude, this rivals many of my pour overs. I'm pumped.
Yeah, it's pretty tasty.
Well. So much for all this coffee hype. This is like my second cup, and we're recording pretty late. After 10.
Well, 10:41 p.m.
Just down a cappuccino after a late shift.
Oh, heck yeah.
Now some more of this. So we should be very animated on this episode.
Yeah, we will see. This is only my second cup, but it's a tasty one. It's a good one. So
yeah. Well, let's kind of dive in because one of the things I'm like super pumped to talk about today that I brought up with you is kind of the tension, or maybe not the tension, depends on how you look at it, the balance between being a coffee enthusiast versus a coffee professional.
Of course.
I don't even like using that term, like coffee professional. It sounds too professional. But then also I don't want to downplay the fact that coffee is a profession. I believe like coffee is my career right now. I feel like to a degree, not to make it very complicated and wordy, I would call this like my meant to be calling. You know what I mean? I invest majority of my energy working with coffee one way or another.
Yeah.
So it's important to me. So it's much different than if I had a espresso machine at home and pulled a couple of shots and just poured latte art without serving it to people. So I think that's kind of the tension there. I know for many folks, was talking to a friend of mine about just different coffee enthusiasts and home baristas or even home roasters that are producing killer tasting coffee and like amazing latte art. Like that's insane. Some of those home baristas that are competing at like Coffee Fest are insane. So yeah, there's a lot of that going on and I'm super pumped about it. So I wanted to kind of talk about it and see how you feel about it as well.
Yeah, I met this guy back when I used to staff at a school. And he was a teenager when he came to the school, like 17 years old or something. He was like a little punk, you know? But anyways, years down the line, he sent a response to my Instagram story and was like, dude, you're into this coffee thing? And we got into a small little conversation. It's like, dude, I haven't talked to this guy in like 6-7 years.
Wow.
Or whatever, or probably like 5. But he was like, dude, this coffee thing is legit. Like it's fun. It's cool. It's exciting. And he's never worked in coffee at all, but I don't know. It almost feels like he has more knowledge and understanding than I do almost sometimes. Like the stuff he tells me about, you know, whether that's grinders, he's, you know, gear. He has a decent at home. He has a niche.
Whoa,
he has
that's big.
He has a, what's it called? There's like, it's not a Mythos. I don't know. I'm forgetting, but it's like those like $2,000-$3,000 home grinders.
Wow.
Single dose. And then he also he started roasting on a bullet at home.
Oh yeah. Let's go.
Just like stuff he's telling me also about like extra. I'm like, how are you? What in the world? Like, and this guy's never worked. I don't think he's ever worked in coffee. He's just picked it up as a hobby. And that's honestly, it's inspiring. It's encouraging to somebody who does work in the coffee industry. And it also puts kind of like a little fire under my butt. Cause I'm like, dude, I can't have this guy out knowledge me or out, you know, understand coffee me because I actually work in the industry. Like this is my job. This is what I'm supposed to be good at. Yeah. Hence professional, you know? Exactly. But that is, you know, not to say that, you know, home baristas can't be professionals. I will say this. I was going to say it for the end of the podcast, but might as well. I am waiting. All of you home baristas out there listening, I am waiting until a home barista goes in and competes and takes over the U.S. Barista Championship, and if not the world.
That'd be wild.
Mirror will sponsor you. I will say this. I don't know what you need. You want like a water boy, a pep talk, like, you know, moral support. I'll be there. Yeah. But I really want to see like a home barista show up and they're like, dude, where do you work at? Nowhere. I've never worked in a cafe, but I'm just going to show up. I'm going to crush. Yeah. I believe, like, I'm stoked. I don't know. Maybe that's just my obsession with the underdog.
Yeah.
You know, but I'm excited about that because I think they do stand a chance. Like, there's some really talented and knowledgeable and skillful just home baristas, which I don't think that name should be taken lightly.
Yeah. I think, especially with like YouTube and social platforms, the, you know, video platforms right now, to a degree, I watch some of these videos and I'm like, man, that looks like a well-rehearsed like competition speech. Like folks really know what to say, how to explain things, know how to serve things. Like that's awesome. And I think, I don't know, I'm skeptical of that ever happening, but dude, it would be a sight to see. It'd definitely be a sight to see. And I think with like what I mentioned earlier, like with YouTube, that's also opened up a lot of knowledge and basically accessibility for folks who don't go to a job and get trained to be a barista, but now they can, you know, sit behind their computer or at their TV screen, watch Lance basically train you you can make a pour over. And
the crazy thing is that it's never been possible to this day.
Yeah.
Like it's those wild. Things are not possible, you know. The fact that knowledge is being so accessible to these home baristas, to people who are just hobbyist enthusiasts, the forums out there that are being written, that you can jump on the Discord channels. It's just bonkers.
Yeah, I think that's incredible. So there's already, I think even within this conversation, you can kind of see that a home barista can be a professional with like the knowledge idea and maybe the expertise. They're just not getting paid for it. And then you have a barista who actually goes to a cafe, opens up shop, gets a paycheck, may have the similar knowledge, but it changes. It's kind of like the same thing in everything. Like for us, like photography, you know, remember the first few photos you shot without getting paid for it. And then you got paid for it. And I mean, these last couple of days, you're on like movie sets and stuff like that.
Yeah,
like it's like a big deal. But it's also very different than maybe you recording a vlog or just for you. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I don't want to say like money changes things, but the professional aspect really does change the motivation. It changes your intention. Maybe I'm wrong. I don't know. Like that's kind of how I feel about it. Is like I remember when I went from basically brewing coffee at home to applying at sippers. Money was like a big factor of it. I thought like, can I actually do this quote unquote hobby and get paid for it? So that was a big part. But then as soon as I got into it, I realized that coffee is more complicated than pouring water over, 320 grams over 20 grams of coffee grounds. Like coffee is a little more complicated in the sense of the supply chain. Coffee is more complicated in the sense of like what it takes to run a cafe. And then being in management and then now like us buying green, like it is complicated. So we went from us just wanting to, taste and experience good coffee and maybe serve it to our friends to like, whoa, like we are way deeper than like we're well over our heads in this industry. But it's still exciting. I would say like we haven't lost our quote unquote fire behind like what we love about coffee and what we love about working in the industry. So what would you say, like, how does that tension play out, one for you, but also if a lot of home baristas, I would assume, are listening to our podcast, if they want to take a step and be a coffee industry professional, should they not? What do you think?
Yeah, I don't know. I have a lot of thoughts, I guess, in all kinds of directions, but I would say like, if you just really enjoy coffee and the craft of it and the experience, the meticulousness of brewing a good coffee, or the ins and outs of just having a hobby that you're fully in, submerged, you're diving into it. You don't have to make it a profession. And actually, like you touched upon some photo and video stuff. Like even this weekend, like I was literally, funny thing was I was like brewing an AeroPress on a movie set and the director shows up. He's like, "What are you doing?" I'm like, "Dude, brewing an AeroPress."
That's great.
Yeah. And it's kind of like, there's two sides of the coin where it's like, number one is like, I would say don't do it. Like keep it a hobby, keep it something that you're excited about, something that you could just walk away from. Hey, you don't want to brew coffee this week? You don't have to.
Right.
Like you're sick of all the mechanics that have to do with it. Sure, you don't have to. You can come back to it next week, whatever. You can't do that as a profession. Like there's no way, like you just can't step away, let alone even if you go into, really deep into it like us, where we now own a business that is a coffee company. We can't step away from it. Like it's hard to get a weekend away from it, because it requires so much of you. And even though one day it may not be a hobby anymore and you're just doing it because you have to do things, that's what makes it kind of a little bit difficult. And I've experienced that with photo and video stuff. Like I can't just take cute photos or make cool videos just whenever I want to. I have to do it all the time, and I have to answer to people, and there's so much complications involved with it. So I would say just stick with being a home barista if you just enjoy the craft and the experience of it. But there's also, that other side that you're talking about where, the other side of the coin is like the fact that I can show up every day to work and do that as a profession, as something I'm getting paid to do.
Right.
I don't have to sit in an office cubicle. I don't have to work construction or whatever it is.
Yeah.
I can go in and pull shots or roast coffee or buy green coffee. That's bonkers. Like, that's a very powerful experience, and it's such a big blessing.
Yeah.
Like, I'm just extremely grateful for this experience, but both of them come at a cost.
Right.
And that's something that I just hope people listening, like, they don't think that the grass is just greener on the other side, because it's not. Once you get deep into the coffee industry, working in it, whether as a barista or as somebody who owns a company, things get messy, things get difficult, and it's not just all about brewing a good coffee. It's not. And it goes far beyond that.
Yeah.
So
I think at any level, like whether maybe you're listening, you're thinking, man, I want to start my own cafe. So, I'm just going to go take out a loan or get a business license. And to a degree, that's easy. You can do that. And if you're a home barista, you have some knowledge and you want to jump into that, sure, you can. But like you were saying, like, things are a little more complicated when this becomes like your job, because it requires a lot of commitment. For me, like, commitment is a very, very important value. Therefore, I didn't step into like coffee as like kind of like, oh, it's cool, it's hip. Like, all the hipsters do it. Like, I want to be one of the cool kids. Sure, a lot of my friends did it. That was an intrigue. Like, that's what intrigued me. That's kind of what brought me in. But I kind of weighed out my options and realized, like, man, this is going to take a lot of commitment. One, if you're a home barista and you're about to leave your full-time job, like, one thing to consider is, like, coffee professionals don't get paid a lot. So, especially when you're someone my age, like, I'm 33 with a kid, and like, I have to basically feed a family on my wage. I'm not saying that I don't get paid enough. That's not what I'm saying. I'm just saying it's not that simple, because I work for a small business and a cafe. But then again, you're right. It's weird. It's like, I'll show up, dial in coffee almost every shift. But then when I go to sleep, I actually think about my dial in. Like, I fall asleep thinking about, like, I can't wait to dial in. I've been in the industry for 4-ish years, I don't know, maybe more. And I still think that way. Still, dialing in espresso excites me. I don't know why, even when I'm serving the same coffee. And then when a guest comes up and asks me, like, hey, man, how are you doing? I say, oh, living the dream. And to be honest, it's like, I chuckle on the inside, because I'm like, yes, I am living the dream. I'm getting paid to basically make coffee. So there is that tension. Like, I don't know if that illustrated it well. There is. It's like, it's difficult. It's hard. So I would say, like, man, if you want to take a leap, think about it. And if that's something you're willing to commit to, like, go for it. And then if you're in the, like, if you're a coffee, quote unquote, professional, I also would, like, just even think about it and processing it. Like, if I had to step away from coffee, like, could I want to say that I could. Like, I don't want to say, like, I'm stuck in coffee. Like, there's other things you can do. So I think at some point, maybe for some folks, it may be a good opportunity to step away if there's a new opportunity. So you can move from being a professional back into a home barista as well. So I think those avenues and those doors are, like, open for folks to join in. One of my favorite things, and I don't remember, how exactly did you move from, well, you had that coffee experience in Portland that kind of got you to work in the industry. But we've been hiring quite a few people right now at Makeworth. And, like, I love when we get to hire someone who's interested in coffee, but is not sure about making this their career. Because I love to see that progress. And you hear a lot of these stories of where, it was just a job. And then after it being a job, I was just, like, fascinated by the craft of it. And now you see those folks become, like, uber successful, like, baristas or even business owners. I love to see that transition. So part of that also excites me, is to welcome people into the industry and then see them grow and walk that process with them. Because that happened to me. I know that happened to you, because where we're at right now, like, wouldn't have happened if there wasn't those people in our lives who actually allowed us and believed in us, even when We didn't know how to pull a shot of espresso. Even when we, botched our milk and it was just complete trash. Like those people who continued walking us through the industry as these greenhorn home baristas, like those people get a lot of credit as well.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I mean, I don't even know what to say after that.
That was quite a monologue.
Yeah, I feel, to a certain extent, honestly, like I kind of feel underqualified because I feel like I'm still a home barista to a certain extent because I don't feel like I've ever spent time working in coffee. Even though I have, like, I've
more
worked
cafes?
close to 2 years. I worked at, at Woods, and then like a year and a half at Primer. So I have worked in coffee, but it just doesn't feel that way. I feel like those moments were just so quick and just flew by so quickly, especially because I worked part-time in them. I've never worked full-time. So it was like sometimes 10 hours a week. Yeah. So it was the bare minimum, where going right away into a coffee profession feels like a lot to take in, but I mean, that being said, like it's been a really spectacular experience. So, in your opinion, who would you say should go into the coffee industry? Like, what are some of the things that you look for in people that you can say, oh no, that's probably a good sign that you should actually give this coffee career a try? Mm-hmm.
So more or less like characteristics. I mean, I would say someone who, one, is a passionate problem solver. Because I think in coffee, like especially in the cafe setting, and if you want to grow in the ladder, you have to be a problem solver, whether that's understanding extraction and trying to resolve, coffee extraction, or understanding bar flow, or understanding just the general business of a cafe. Like if problem solving is a passion of yours and coffee is a hobby, then it's probably, I would say that's a good idea. That's something I would look for in an interview. It's like, how well is a person like willing to problem solve and not necessarily just see the problems and have no solution for them. Because if you're joining the coffee industry and you've never worked in coffee before, you're taking your first job in coffee, it's not all rainbows and butterflies. It's not this pretty glamorous scene. Like the coffee industry can be pretty messy. It's not always messy, but it can be. So therefore, get ready and step in with an idea of like, hey, I'm going to problem solve and I'm going to make the industry better in a sense and grow the industry. So with that mentality, but then also classic, cliche, call me basic, you got to be a people person. Like if you don't like being around people and you're a home barista and you love the extraction, the nitty gritty, like the geeky stuff, you're reading, Jonathan Gagne's book, Scott Ray, you're obsessing over Instagram, over all of the coffee pros, but you hate being surrounded by people because you're used to being at home, might not be the best for you. Maybe you should be like this uber, like awesome home barista because if people drain you, it's going to be a very hard job. Yeah. And especially if you're doing that 40 hours a week, it's going to be a hard job. I think you bring up a very valid point. If you're wanting to get your like toes dipped in the water of what it means to be a barista or even like a roaster, you're moving from home roasting to like you wanting to start a roasting company or become a full-time roaster. We've said this so many times, like go and talk to someone, maybe go and intern, like maybe come to a cafe and get a part-time job. You don't have to dive in full-time because you don't know if you're going to like it or not. That's kind of fair. I would also say that's for every career as well. Yeah. But for coffee specifically.
I think that's extremely crucial is like, I think that puts it so well where it's like, if you're a passionate home barista and you're thinking about going into this professionally or, in anything really in general is like, go get a job, go find a part-time job or shadow somebody or, that's really going to give you some hands-on experience to be able to give you a taste of like, do you actually, want to do this, So, I think that is really solid. I literally, I cannot stress that enough.
Yeah,
because
for sure.
Especially if you long-term want to start a business of your own and you want to do that, if you can't do that just on a regular basis, then I would strongly recommend you to think twice about, starting something. So
yeah, there's nothing like, finding a mentor. And I feel like we're saying all the cheesy stuff, but it's true. Like in general in life, like if you don't have someone in your life that's helping like coach you or mentor you or push you into the direction that maybe you don't see yourself going, but an external set of eyes always calls out something you may not see, which is great. That kind of happened to me, like when I was kind of, dabbling in coffee and thinking about like, is this even possible? Because I took a very left turn in my career. I went from something that was completely non-coffee related to working as a coffee manager. And that happened literally because someone saw the possibility and saw what I can actually accomplish in coffee, and they called that out. So then ask, like, you're a home barista and you're wanting to get into like coffee as a profession, ask the people around you and see if it's a good fit. And if you're going to cafes on a regular basis,
for sure,
maybe ask that barista on what it looks like. Like, should they go into coffee? You know what I mean? So ask those questions. Questions are key, I would say.
Yeah. And I think, a portion of like this podcast, I think even is like is not to replace the mentor or the people around you, the community around you,
right?
But it is a source of information for you to glean from, like even the people who have reached out to us, whether that's YouTube, emailed us on Instagram, like we're always open to answering, as transparent and as honest, no, beating around the bush or romanticizing a life that is not the reality.
Yeah.
It is what it is. And so like these podcasts, I hope for those listening, like hopefully is kind of giving you this second opinion that maybe you don't have around yourself currently. And that's part of been like the exciting part of actually running this podcast, just giving people like this other opinion about it. So
I think in wrapping things up, one last question.
Go for it.
What if you had to go in a like different avenue of coffee? Like, what would you want to do next? Not saying that you have to quit like Mirror. Not saying you have to quit being a barista or a roaster.
Yeah. Oh, man, that's going to be rough to answer in the next 1 minute that we have on our cameras. Oh, boy, time is ticking. I don't know. A part of being a cafe owner, I know it's cliche, but is intriguing to me. A part of doing... roasting is fun.
Super fun,
like,
dude.
It's cool. Like,
yeah,
I don't know. Maybe doing some stuff with green coffee, but even that, probably more. Yeah.
I would really want to go and, like I was saying earlier, intern or jump in and do a harvest at an origin. Yeah. Just be a picker.
Yeah. That would for sure be fun. But yeah, once again, we're like caught up on time. Thank you guys so much for listening. Speaking of green beans and exporting, we might have the owner of an importing company join us here soon on the podcast. It's going to be a good one, so stay tuned in the next couple of weeks. But yeah, that's a wrap for this podcast episode. Thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you guys in the next one. Cheers.